My son poured me a glass of water at Christmas dinner. 10 minutes later, my chest tightened like a vice. And I knew something was wrong. When I went to his kitchen for air, I found more than relief. I found the envelope with my name, a $2 million insurance policy I never signed, and a vial of clear liquid waiting behind the salt cellar. It wasn't holiday cheer on the table that night. It was motive. And in that moment, I realized my own son saw me as worth more dead than alive. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The Lexus key fob sat on the table like a dare. My son Mark placed it there. Christmas dinner, his house. The centerpiece was too tall. Candles threw soft light across crystal and china. Everything gleamed. I lifted the water glass he'd handed me. Something pulled tight in my chest. A belt cinching one notch too far. Mark smiled across the table. His wife Erin laughed at something. The sound felt rehearsed. They talked about Aspen, about upgrades, about plans. Words that cost money they shouldn't have. I'd balanced other people's accounts for 30 years. A bank clerk learns to smell trouble. Numbers that don't add up. Paperwork that shines too bright. Tonight the shine hurt my eyes. The tightness in my chest spread. I set down the glass. My fingers felt thick. I need fresh water, I told them. The kitchen was all stainless steel and quartz. Clean surfaces. Empty counters. My sleeve caught a stack of mail near the sink. Envelopes scattered across the stone. I bent to pick them up. Credit card statements. Car payment notices. Store bills marked overdue. One envelope stopped my hand. Monarch Life Insurance. My name in the plastic window. Already opened. I pulled out the paper inside. Term policy. Insured Helena Alvarez. Face value $2 million. Beneficiary Mark Alvarez. Effective date 3 weeks ago. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the counter edge. My water bottle sat by the sink. Half empty. The bottle I'd been drinking from all evening. Behind the salt cellar, something else caught the light. A small glass vial. Clear liquid inside. Viscous. Clinical. The belt around my chest pulled again. Tighter this time. I looked back at the insurance paper. $2 million. 3 weeks old. I never signed anything. The ceiling camera blinked red in the corner. I'd noticed it earlier. Mark said it was for security. My training came back. The rules from 3 decades of bank work. Don't react. Don't make a scene. Document everything. Evidence first. I slid the policy back into its envelope. Used a dish towel to palm the vial. It disappeared into my coat pocket. I opened a new water bottle from the fridge. The seal cracked clean. Cold water washed the thickness from my throat. I walked back to the dining room. My legs felt steadier now. Purpose does that. Mark asked if everything was all right. I smiled. I told him the water was perfect. Erin brought out pecan pie. I praised the crust. My heart beat steady under my ribs. Fear had burned off. What remained was colder. The chandelier trembled slightly overhead. Or maybe that was my vision. I finished dessert. I thanked them for a lovely evening. Mark walked me to the door. He hugged me. I patted his shoulder. "Drive safe, Mom," he said. "I always do," I told him. The drive home took 20 minutes. I left the radio off. Windows up. Silence had weight to it. My house looked small after Mark's. The porch light glowed yellow. I'd left it on that morning. The morning when things still made sense. The deadbolt turned with a sound I trusted. Inside, the familiar smell of old wood and lavender. The house where Mark learned to tie his shoes. Where he built model bridges from toothpicks. I set my purse on the counter. Took out the vial. Under the kitchen task light, it looked smaller. More innocent. It wasn't. My phone sat charging by the coffee maker. I picked it up. My finger hovered over 911. But I'd spent 30 years in banking. I knew how evidence worked. How chain of custody mattered. How panic destroyed cases. I scrolled to another number. Ari Cohen, my attorney for 25 years. A man who thought in steps. He answered on the second ring. Ari, I said, I need your help. He heard something in my voice. He asked what happened. I told him about the policy. The vial. The tightness in my chest that felt wrong. He was quiet for 3 seconds. Then his voice came back sharp and clear. Don't touch anything else, he said. Bag the vial. Don't wash it. Don't run water near it. I can do that, I said. Be at Mercy General at 8 tomorrow morning. Ask for a full blood panel. Tell them you want toxicology. Tell them your heart feels off. Why the hospital first? I asked. Evidence, he said. We need your blood work before anything leaves your system. If something's there, we document it now. Then we move. The word, move, sounded like a door closing. Or opening. What if I'm wrong? I said. Then we're wrong together, Ari said. But Helena, you're not wrong. You never are about numbers. And this is just math. I thanked him. He told me not to thank him yet. After we hung up, I found a Ziploc bag. Sealed the vial inside. Wrote the date and my initials across the seal with permanent marker. I sat at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. Outside, a car passed. Headlights swept across the ceiling. I thought about Mark's smile at dinner. The way it didn't reach his eyes. The insurance policy I never signed. The money I'd loaned him 6 months ago. $40,000 for a bridge loan that never got repaid. The pattern was there. I'd just refused to see it. But I saw it now. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Christmas was over. Tomorrow would be different. I turned off the lights. Went upstairs. Lay down in the dark. Sleep didn't come. I didn't expect it to. I stared at the ceiling and ran the numbers again. They came up the same every time. $2 million. One sick mother. A son who needed money. The equation was simple. Brutal. Clear. At 7:30, I got dressed. Gray slacks. A blue cardigan. Sensible shoes. I put the bagged vial in my purse. Checked my driver's license. Insurance card. The morning was cold. Frost covered the windshield. I scraped it clean with steady strokes. Mercy General sat on the east side of town. I knew the way. I'd driven my husband there twice. The second time, he didn't come home. I parked near the entrance. Took a breath. The air tasted like winter. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of disinfectant. A woman at the desk looked up. I need a blood panel, I told her. Full toxicology screen. She asked if I had symptoms. My heart feels wrong, I said. It wasn't a lie. My heart felt many things. Wrong was one of them. She typed into her computer. Gave me a clipboard. I filled out forms in block letters. Neat. Legible. The way I'd been taught. A nurse called my name. I followed her down a white hallway. She took my blood pressure. Asked about medications. I listed them. She drew 6 vials of blood. The needle pinched. I watched the tubes fill red. A doctor would call with results, she said. I thanked her. Walked back to my car. The sun had risen. Light cut sharp across the parking lot. I drove home. Made tea. Sat by the window. The phone rang at noon. "This is Dr. Patel from Mercy General," the voice said. "We need to discuss your lab results. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from." Dr. Patel's voice came through clear and measured. He asked if I was sitting down. I told him I was. "Your labs show something unusual," he said. "An antiarrhythmic drug in your system. Significant levels." The window in front of me reflected my face. I looked calm. I felt calm. "What kind of drug?" I asked. He used a medical term. Long syllables. Chemical precision. Then he translated. "A medication that affects heart rhythm. Dangerous for someone with my cardiac history." I asked if it was prescribed. He said no record existed. The silence between us stretched. He filled it with questions. Had I taken anything new? Had I felt dizzy? Confused? Chest pain? "Yes to the chest pain," I said. "Last night at dinner." He asked where I'd been. What I'd eaten. What I'd drunk. "My son's house," I told him. "Christmas dinner." I drank water he gave me. Another pause. Longer this time. "Mrs. Alvarez," he said, "this drug doesn't appear by accident. In your condition, it could trigger cardiac arrest. It would look natural. Expected, even." The word "expected" landed like a stone. "I understand," I said. He asked if I wanted to file a police report. He could connect me with someone. "Not yet," I told him. "I need documentation first. Can you print the full lab results?" He said he could. He said he would note everything in my file. Clinical dose, he called it. Not accidental. I thanked him. He told me to come back immediately if I felt any symptoms. Any at all. After we hung up, I sat very still. The house held its breath with me. The lab report would arrive by courier before 5. Ari had arranged it. Fast processing for medical emergencies. This qualified. I made a sandwich. Ate half. The bread tasted like cardboard. My body wanted fuel. My stomach wanted nothing. The afternoon light moved across the floor. I watched it crawl from east to west. Time passed in inches. At 4:30, a knock came. A young man in a blue uniform held a manila envelope. I signed for it. He wished me happy holidays. I thanked him. Inside, 6 pages of medical terminology. Test names. Reference ranges. Results highlighted in yellow. The drug name appeared 3 times. Once in the summary. Twice in the detailed breakdown. I laid the report on the kitchen table next to the bagged vial. 2 pieces of evidence. 1 story. My phone rang. Ari's name on the screen. "You got the results," he said. I did. "And?" "Positive," I told him. "Clinical dose. Non-prescribed. Doctor said it could have killed me." Ari was quiet for a moment. Then his lawyer voice came back. Sharp. Focused. "We need to move carefully now," he said. "This is attempted murder. But we need the connection proven. The vial tested. The timeline established." I asked what came next. He said we'd meet tomorrow. His office. 9 in the morning. He'd have a plan by then. I asked if we should call the police now. "Not yet," he said. "We build the case first. Make it airtight. Then we hand it over complete. No gaps. No questions." That made sense. I'd spent 30 years closing accounts. You don't rush the final reconciliation. We said goodbye. The sun dropped below the roofline. Shadows filled the kitchen. I thought about Mark as a boy. 7 years old, maybe 8. He'd found a bird with a broken wing. Cried over it. We'd made a box with newspaper and seeds. The bird died anyway. He'd asked me why we tried to save it. I told him because we could. Because trying mattered. Now he'd tried to kill me. For $2 million. The trying mattered there too. Just differently. I heated soup for dinner. Tomato from a can. The smell reminded me of school lunches. Simple things. Predictable. The phone rang again. Mark's name this time. My hand hovered over the screen. 3 rings. 4. I answered. His voice came through bright and false. Checking on me. Making sure I got home safe. The roads were icy, he said. I told him I was fine. The drive was easy. He asked how I was feeling. If the dinner agreed with me. Perfect, I said. Everything was perfect. He seemed satisfied. We talked about nothing for 2 minutes. Weather. Plans for New Year's. Empty words filling space. Before we hung up, he said he loved me. I said it back. The lie tasted bitter. The evening stretched long. I washed the dishes, wiped the counters, folded a dish towel into precise thirds. Upstairs, I ran a bath. Hot water, lavender oil. The steam filled the small bathroom. I sank into the heat and felt my muscles unknot. My body had been trying to tell me something. The tightness, the chest pain, warning signs I'd almost ignored. 30 years of balancing books taught me to trust the numbers. They never lied, but I'd needed to learn the same lesson about my body. It kept better records than any ledger. I dried off, put on flannel pajamas, the fabric soft from years of washing. In bed, I opened the drawer of my nightstand. Inside, a photo album. Old pictures. Mark at 6 months. Mark at his high school graduation. Mark and Erin's wedding. I looked at his face in each photo, searching for the moment it changed. The picture where I could see what was coming. But faces in photos don't tell the truth. They show what we wanted to see. What we believed at the time. I closed the album, put it back in the drawer. Sleep came easier than expected. No dreams I could remember. Just darkness. Rest. Morning arrived cold and bright. Friday. 2 days after Christmas. I dressed in navy slacks and a cream sweater. Professional. Composed. The mirror showed a woman who knew her mind. At 8:30, I drove to Ari's office. Downtown, 3rd floor. The building smelled like coffee and copy paper. His secretary smiled when I walked in. She said he was expecting me. The conference room had dark wood paneling and leather chairs. Ari sat at the head of the table. Files spread in front of him. Yellow legal pads covered in notes. He stood when I entered. We didn't shake hands. We'd known each other too long for formality. I sat across from him. Placed my purse on the table. The vial and the lab report inside. He asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes. While he poured, I took out the evidence. Laid it between us. The vial in its bag. The hospital report. The insurance policy I'd brought from home. Ari sat back down. Put on reading glasses. Studied each piece. His finger traced the dates. Policy effective date. Lab test date. Christmas dinner date. This is good, he said. Very good. But we need more. I asked what kind of more. He tapped the insurance policy. We need to know how this got filed. Who signed your name? What other documentation exists? He looked at the vial. We need this tested. Confirmed. Chain of custody maintained. Then he looked at me. And we need to understand Mark's financial situation. His debts. His desperation. I told him about the $40,000 I'd loaned 6 months ago. Never repaid. I mentioned Erin's failed business. The lifestyle that didn't match their income. Ari wrote everything down. His pen moved fast across the page. When I finished, he set down his pen. "Helena," he said, "I need to ask you something difficult." I waited. "If we pursue this, it becomes public. It becomes real. Your son goes to prison. Are you prepared for that?" The question sat between us like a test. I thought about the tightness in my chest, the vial by the sink, the policy with my forged signature. I thought about the phone call last night. Mark asking if I felt okay. Already measuring the weight. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Ari nodded once. "Then let's build the case." He picked up his phone. Started making calls. "If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from." Ari's first call went to a private investigator named Sarah Chen. She arrived within the hour. Mid-40s, gray suit, briefcase that looked like it had traveled. Her handshake was firm. Her eyes moved over the evidence without touching. Ari walked her through what we had. The policy, the vial, the lab report. She asked questions in clipped sentences. When did I last see Mark? What was his demeanor? Had there been arguments? No arguments, I told her. Just requests for money. Loans that became gifts. She wrote in a small notebook. Her pen made scratching sounds. She asked about Mark's wife. I described Aaron's business failures. The boutique that burned through vendor credit. The lifestyle posts on social media while bills went unpaid. Sarah looked up. "Social media is evidence," she said. "People document their own lies now." She asked for Mark's address. His workplace. Bank names if I knew them. I gave her everything. 30 years of balancing accounts made me remember details. Numbers. Dates. Institutions. She said she'd start with financial records. Public databases. Credit reports. The digital trail people think disappears. Ari asked about the vial. Could she arrange independent testing? Sarah knew a lab. Discreet. Fast. Chain of custody maintained. She'd have results in 72 hours. She stood to leave. Told me not to contact Mark. Not to change my routine. Normal behavior protected evidence. I asked what normal looked like now. She smiled without warmth. Like a mother who doesn't know her son tried to kill her. After she left, the conference room felt larger. Emptier. Ari closed his files. He asked if I needed anything. "Time," I said. "Just time to think." He understood. Told me to call if that changed. The drive home took me past Mark's neighborhood. I didn't slow down. Didn't look. The houses there all had security cameras. Better to be nowhere near. Home felt different now. Every room held 30 years of memories. Mark's height marks on the doorframe. His school photos on the mantel. The house had been full once. Now it echoed. I made tea. Earl Grey. The ritual steadied my hands. The afternoon passed in small tasks. Laundry. Dusting. Bills that needed paying. Life continued around the edges of crisis. At 4, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. He asked about dinner next week. Just the three of us. Somewhere nice. My thumb hovered over the screen. Sarah's words came back. Normal behavior. I typed a response. That sounds lovely. Let me know when. His reply came fast. Will do, Mom. Love you. The phone went dark. I set it face down on the counter. Evening came early in winter. By 5:30, darkness pressed against the windows. I closed the curtains. Turned on lamps. Made the house small and warm. Dinner was leftover soup. I ate standing at the counter. The silence was complete. Later, I pulled out my file cabinet. Old tax returns. Bank statements. Records I'd kept because keeping records was what I did. Mark's loan paperwork sat in a folder marked family. $40,000. 6 months ago. A promissory note he'd signed. Standard terms. 6% interest. Repayment in 12 months. Not one payment made. Not one call to explain. I spread the papers on the dining table. Added the insurance policy. The lab report. The vial in its sealed bag. The pattern was clear. A timeline drawn in debts and desperation. I photographed everything with my phone. Sent the images to Ari. Evidence backup. He'd taught me that. The weekend arrived quiet and slow. Saturday morning, I went to the grocery store. The same store I'd shopped at for 20 years. The checkers knew my name. One asked about my Christmas. I said it was lovely. She said she was glad. Normal behavior. Normal words. A performance in the produce aisle. Sunday I went to church. The same pew I'd sat in since Mark was baptized. The sermon was about forgiveness. I listened without hearing. Afterwards, people asked about Mark. How he was doing, if he'd been by recently. I said he was well. Busy with work. The lies came easily now. Monday morning, Sarah called. She'd found Mark's financial records. 3 credit cards maxed. A home equity line tapped its limit. A personal loan from a non-bank lender. The kind with rates that compound weekly. Total debt $217,000. The number sat between us on the line. She said more. Court records showed a pending lawsuit. A business partner claiming fraud. $30,000 owed. Trial date set for March. I asked about income. She said Mark's salary was $85,000. Aaron wasn't working. The math didn't work. Hadn't worked for over a year. Motive, she said. Clear and documented. She asked about assets I might have. Life insurance I carried. Property. Savings. I told her about my house. Paid off. Worth maybe $400,000. My retirement accounts. Modest but stable. The trust I'd set up years ago. $7.6 million. Mark was the beneficiary. Sarah went quiet. That's a lot of motive, she finally said. I asked about the vial. When would we have results? Tomorrow, she said. The lab was running tests now. Chemical analysis. Concentration levels. Everything documented. We hung up. The house settled around me. Floorboards creaked. The furnace hummed. I thought about the $2 million policy. How small it seemed next to the trust. How Mark must have seen it as a down payment. Kill me quietly. Collect the insurance. Wait a respectful year. Then inherit everything else. A patient plan. Almost clever. Tuesday afternoon, Sarah called again. The vial tested positive. Same drug as in my bloodstream. Pharmaceutical grade. Concentration high enough to be lethal in cardiac patients. She'd traced the purchase. An online pharmacy. Foreign. The kind that doesn't ask questions. Payment through a prepaid debit card bought with cash. But there was security footage. A pharmacy 2 blocks from Mark's office. Date stamped 3 weeks ago. The same day the insurance policy was filed. She was sending everything to Ari. Building the case. Layer by layer. I asked what came next. She said Ari would know. He'd decide when to involve police. When the case was airtight. When no defense could find a crack. That night I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2. Made chamomile tea. Sat in the dark kitchen. The vial was with Sarah now. The evidence was with Ari. The truth was spreading into documents and reports. Soon it would spread further. Into courtrooms. Into public record. into the space between me and my son forever. The tea went cold in my hands. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no movement, just winter darkness and the distant glow of streetlights. I thought about the woman I'd been 4 days ago. The mother who believed in her son. Who saw money troubles as temporary. Who thought love was enough protection. That woman was gone now. In her place sat someone harder. Clearer. Someone who knew that love without boundaries was just permission to be destroyed. The clock ticked toward morning. I stayed in the dark. Waiting. Thinking. Preparing. Wednesday at 9, Ari called. He'd reviewed everything Sarah sent. The financials. The pharmacy footage. The vial analysis. All of it. His voice was steady. Professional. He said we had enough. Enough for what? I asked. Enough to go to the police, he said. Enough to file charges. Enough to put your son in prison. The words hung between us. He asked if I was ready. I looked around my kitchen. The morning light. The clean counters. The quiet house. Yes, I said. I'm ready. He told me to come to his office Thursday morning. He'd have someone there. A detective. Someone who understood financial crime. Someone who would listen. I said I'd be there. After we hung up, I sat very still. The machinery was moving now. Evidence becoming action. Truth becoming consequence. Outside, a bird sang. Life continuing. Indifferent. Precise. I finished my tea. Washed the cup. Put it away. Thursday would come. I would be ready. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Thursday morning arrived clear and cold. I dressed in charcoal gray. A wool blazer. Pearl earrings my husband gave me. The kind of outfit that says credible witness. Reliable narrator. The drive downtown took 20 minutes. Traffic moved steady. Red lights turned green. The world continued its business. Ari's building looked the same as always. Brick. 6 stories. Windows reflecting clouds. Inside, the elevator hummed upward. 3rd floor. The doors slid open. His secretary greeted me. Said the detective was already here. Asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes. Black. No sugar. The conference room door was open. 2 people sat inside. Ari and a woman in her late 30s. Dark hair pulled back. Badge clipped to her belt. She stood when I entered. Extended her hand. Detective Lucia Ruiz, she said. Financial Crimes Unit. Her grip was firm. Her eyes assessed without judgment. We all sat. The coffee arrived in white mugs. Steam rose and disappeared. Detective Ruiz opened a leather portfolio. Inside, yellow legal paper covered in notes. She said Ari had briefed her. She'd reviewed the preliminary evidence. Now she needed to hear it from me. Start to finish. Every detail. I began with Christmas dinner. The key fob. The too tall centerpiece. Mark's smile. She listened without interrupting. Her pen moved across the page. I described the kitchen. The scattered mail. The insurance policy I never signed. The vial behind the salt cellar. She asked what I did next. I told her about the new water bottle. The vial in my pocket. The drive home. She nodded. Good instincts, she said. Evidence preservation matters. I continued. The hospital visit. The blood panel. Dr. Patel's call. The drug in my system. Detective Ruiz asked about my cardiac history. I listed the medications. The diagnosis from 3 years ago. The cardiologist's warnings. She wrote it all down. Then asked about Mark's financial situation. I gave her the numbers. The $40,000 loan. The unpaid debts. The failed business. The lawsuit pending. She looked up. How much are you worth, Mrs. Alvarez? The question was direct. Professional. I answered the same way. My house. 400,000. Retirement accounts. Just under 300,000. A trust. 7.6 million. Her pen stopped moving. Who inherits? She asked. Mark, I said. He's my only child. Detective Ruiz sat back. Her chair creaked. So we have motive, she said. 2 million immediate. 7.6 eventual. Against 200,000 in debt. The math was simple. Brutal. Clear. She asked about the insurance policy. When I first saw it. What the date showed. 3 weeks ago, I told her. Same day Mark bought the prepaid card. She asked how I knew about the card. I explained Sarah Chen. The investigation. The pharmacy footage. Detective Ruiz smiled slightly. You came prepared, she said. 30 years in banking, I told her. I know how to build a case. She asked to see the evidence. Ari opened his briefcase. Laid everything on the table. The insurance policy. The hospital report. The vial analysis. Photos of the pharmacy footage. Mark's financial records. The loan documents. Detective Ruiz studied each piece. She asked questions about chain of custody. Who touched what? When? How it was stored. Ari walked her through it. Every step documented. Every transfer recorded. She seemed satisfied. Said the evidence was solid. Clean. Prosecutable. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Alvarez, she said. This is attempted murder. Insurance fraud. If we move forward, your son faces decades in prison. I met her eyes. Steady. Clear. I understand, I said. She asked if I was certain. If I'd considered reconciliation. Confrontation. Other options. He tried to kill me, I said. For money. There are no other options. The room went quiet. The heating system clicked on. Warm air whispered through the vents. Detective Ruiz nodded once. Then we proceed, she said. She outlined the next steps. Her team would verify the evidence. Interview witnesses. Build the criminal case. It would take time. Maybe weeks. She asked me not to contact Mark. Not to hint at what was coming. Any warning could compromise the investigation. I asked if he was dangerous. If I should be concerned. She said he'd already tried once. Failed. Probably wouldn't risk another attempt. But I should be cautious. Change my routines. Vary my schedule. Ari suggested I stay somewhere else. A hotel. A friend's house. I shook my head. That house is mine, I said. I'm not leaving. Detective Ruiz understood. She gave me her card. Her direct number. Told me to call anytime. Day or night. The meeting ended just before noon. We stood. Shook hands. She said she'd be in touch. After she left, Ari walked me to the elevator. He asked if I was okay. Really okay. I told him I was numb. But certain. The numbness would pass. The certainty wouldn't. The elevator descended. The lobby was busy. People coming and going. Lives in motion. Outside, the cold bit through my coat. I walked to my car. Started the engine. Let it warm. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. He said he'd made reservations. Friday night. 7 o'clock. A new Italian place downtown. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Detective Ruiz said not to contact him. Not to change behavior. Normal meant accepting invitations. I typed a response. Sounds perfect. See you then. The phone went dark. I set it in the cup holder. Friday night. Dinner with my son. 24 hours away. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every stoplight held me. Every turn took effort. Home was warm, quiet, mine. I made lunch. Scrambled eggs, toast, food that required no thought. The afternoon stretched ahead, empty hours that needed filling. I pulled out photo albums. Old pictures from better years. Mark at 5, at 10, at graduation, smiling, innocent, or seemingly so. How long had he been capable of this? Years, months, or was it recent? A sudden turn driven by desperation. The photos didn't answer. They just showed a boy who no longer existed. If he ever had. Evening came. I made tea. Watched the news. None of it registered. At 8, my phone rang. Detective Ruiz. She said her team had started verification. Everything checked out. The case was strong. They'd move to arrest in about 2 weeks. After all witnesses were interviewed. 2 weeks felt like forever. And no time at all. She asked about the dinner tomorrow. Said I could cancel. Say I was sick. I told her no. I'd go. Play the role. One last time. She said to be careful. To watch what I drank. What I ate. To trust nothing. I promised I would. After we hung up, the house felt smaller. The walls closer. One dinner. One performance. Then the machinery of justice would turn. I went to bed early. Sleep wouldn't come. I stared at the ceiling. Counted minutes. Somewhere across town, Mark was probably sleeping. Dreaming. Planning. Waiting for his inheritance to arrive. He had no idea the ground had already shifted. The trap was already sprung. Friday arrived gray and damp. Rain tapped against the windows. I spent the day preparing. Not for dinner. For what came after. I wrote a letter. Sealed it. Gave it to Ari. Instructions in case something went wrong. I updated my will. Added codicils. Made everything clear. I called my insurance company. Verified my real policies. The ones I'd actually signed. By 6 o'clock, I was ready. Navy dress. Low heels. A scarf my husband bought me in Boston. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. Rain slicked the streets. Headlights reflected off wet pavement. The restaurant was new. Modern. All glass and steel. Expensive. Inside, warm light. Soft music. The smell of garlic and wine. Mark waited at a corner table. He stood when he saw me. Kissed my cheek. His smile was perfect. His eyes were empty. Erin was there too. She hugged me. Said I looked wonderful. We sat. Menus arrived. The waiter described specials. I ordered carefully. A salad. Nothing that could hide something. Water in a sealed bottle. Mark talked about work. Erin talked about a new project. Their voices washed over me. I smiled. Nodded. Played the mother they expected. And I waited. Because in 2 weeks, everything would change. The dinner passed. Courses came and went. I ate little. Drank less. At 9, we said goodbye. Mark hugged me. Told me he loved me. I said it back. The lie was easier now. The drive home was quiet. The rain had stopped. Stars broke through clouds. Inside my house, I locked the door. Set the alarm. Turned on every light. Then I sat at the kitchen table. Hands folded. Breathing steady. 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. I could wait. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The 2 weeks moved like a held breath. Detective Ruiz called every few days. Progress reports. Updates. Her team was thorough. Interviews with pharmacy staff. Bank records subpoenaed. Digital forensics on Mark's devices. Each call brought the net closer. Tighter. I kept my routines. Grocery shopping on Tuesdays. Library on Thursdays. Church on Sundays. The normal rhythms of a life. But I varied the times. Changed the routes. Watched my mirrors. Mark called twice. Both times cheerful. Both times asking how I felt. If I needed anything. The concern in his voice was perfect. Practiced. False. I told him I was fine. Just fine. The weather turned colder. January settling in with frost and gray skies. The house creaked at night. Old wood contracting in the cold. I slept in pieces. An hour here. 2 hours there. Dreams that dissolved on waking. 1 week in, Sarah Chen called. She'd found more. A loan application Mark had filed. 2 months ago. $500,000 requested. My house listed as collateral. My signature forged at the bottom. The application was denied. Wrong documentation. But the intent was clear. He'd been planning this longer than Christmas. Longer than the insurance policy. This was systematic. Patient. Calculated. Sarah asked if I wanted to add it to the case. More evidence of fraud. More years on a sentence. I said yes. Add everything. The days blurred together. I read books without remembering plots. Watched television without seeing images. Time was something to survive. To get through. 10 days in, Ari called. He needed to discuss something. Could I come to his office tomorrow morning? His tone was careful. Lawyer neutral. The kind that meant complicated news. I said I'd be there at 9. That night I barely slept. My mind ran scenarios. Bad ones. What if the case fell apart? What if Mark discovered the investigation? What if he ran? Morning came too slow and too fast. The drive to Ari's office was mechanical. Turn here. Stop there. Park in the usual spot. His secretary brought coffee. Dark roast. Too hot to drink. Ari sat across from me. A folder between us. He said Detective Ruiz had asked him to discuss options. Before the arrest happened. Before everything became public. Options sounded like compromise. I didn't want compromise. He opened the folder. Inside, a draft agreement. Settlement terms. Proposed by the prosecutor's office. Mark could plead guilty. Avoid trial. Receive a reduced sentence. Maybe 8 years instead of 20. In exchange, he'd forfeit all inheritance claims. Sign a confession. Cooperate fully. The words sat on the page. Clean. Legal. Final. I asked why they wanted a plea. The case was strong. Ari explained. Trials were expensive. Unpredictable. Juries could be sympathetic. A son in debt. A mother with money. Reasonable doubt could creep in. A guilty plea was certain. Guaranteed. Done. I looked at the terms again. 8 years. He'd be 52 when released. Still time to rebuild a life. 20 years meant he'd be 64. An old man leaving prison. Ari asked what I thought. What I wanted. The question felt heavier than it should. I thought about Mark at 7. Crying over a bird. I thought about Mark at Christmas. Smiling over a plan to kill me. 8 years. 20 years. Either way, my son was gone. I told Ari I needed time. 24 hours. To think it through. He said that was fine. The deadline was 48 hours. We had room. The drive home was quiet. The radio stayed off. My thoughts were loud enough. At home, I made tea. Sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Mark did homework. Where we ate breakfast before school. The memories felt like someone else's life. My phone rang. Detective Ruiz. She asked if Ari had explained the plea option. I said yes. She told me it was my choice. Completely. The prosecutor would follow my wishes. I asked what she recommended. She was quiet for a moment. Then said that certainty had value. Prison was prison. 8 or 20. He'd still lose everything. But trials were risks. Defense attorneys told stories, made victims look vindictive, made crimes look like misunderstandings. A confession meant he admitted it, said it out loud, owned what he tried to do. That mattered, more than years sometimes. I thanked her, said I'd decide soon. The afternoon disappeared. I walked through the house, each room holding fragments. His bedroom, now a guest room. The closet where he hid Christmas presents he'd made. The window where he watched for the school bus. The house remembered the boy. I had to deal with the man. Evening came. I heated soup, ate half. The rest went down the drain. At 8, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. He said he was thinking about me. Hoped I was well. Maybe we could do lunch next week. The casual cruelty of it. Checking in. Making sure I was still alive. Still available to inherit from. I typed back. Lunch sounds nice. Let's plan it. The lie was automatic now. Effortless. That night I dreamed about the trial I'd never see. A courtroom. Mark in a suit. Jurors looking bored. The prosecutor stumbling over evidence. The defense attorney smiling. I woke at 3, sweating, heart racing. The dream felt like prophecy. Like warning. By morning, I'd decided. I called Ari at 8. Told him I'd accept the plea. 8 years. Confession. Forfeiture of inheritance. He asked if I was sure. I said I was certain. Certainty had value. Detective Ruiz was right. I wanted Mark to say it. To admit he tried to kill me. To own the choice he made. That was worth 12 years of his life staying his own. Ari said he'd inform the prosecutor. The paperwork would be drawn up. The plea would be entered within a week. Then the arrest would happen. Soon. Maybe days. I asked if he'd tell me when. He said he would. We hung up. The house felt lighter somehow. The decision was made. The path was clear. 2 days later, Detective Ruiz called. Tomorrow morning, she said. 6 a.m. Her team would execute the arrest warrant. At Mark's house. Before he left for work. She asked if I wanted to be there. Some victims did. Wanted to witness it. I said no. I didn't need to see that. Didn't want to. She understood. Said she'd call afterwards. Let me know it was done. I thanked her. For everything. For believing me. For being thorough. She said it was her job. But her voice was kind. That night I packed a bag. Just in case. If media found out. If I needed to disappear for a while. The bag sat by the door. Ready. Waiting. Sleep came in pieces again. I woke every hour. Checked the clock. Counted minutes. At 5:30, I gave up. Made coffee. Sat in the dark kitchen. Somewhere across town, Detective Ruiz and her team were gathering. Going over the plan. Checking equipment. At 6, they'd knock on Mark's door. Show the warrant. Read him his rights. The machinery I'd set in motion would complete its work. 6 o'clock came. Then 6:15. 6:30. My phone stayed silent. That was normal. These things took time. At 7, it rang. Detective Ruiz. Her voice steady. Professional. It's done, she said. He's in custody. No incidents. His wife was there. Hysterical. But no violence. I asked how Mark reacted. She said he went pale. Asked what this was about. Claimed confusion. Insisted on calling his attorney. Standard responses. The script people use when caught. She said the arraignment would be this afternoon. His lawyer would arrange bail. Probably get it. He wasn't a flight risk. Not yet. But the charges were filed. The plea negotiations would start. Everything was in motion. I thanked her again. She said she'd be in touch. The phone went dark. I set it on the table. 7:15 on a Tuesday morning. My son was in custody. Charged with trying to murder me. The coffee had gone cold. I poured it out. Made fresh. Outside, the sun rose. Light spilled across the frozen grass. The world continued. Indifferent. Precise. I sat at the table. Hands wrapped around the warm mug. Breathing steady. It was done. Not finished. But done. The rest would come. Paperwork. Hearings. The plea itself. Mark standing before a judge. Admitting what he'd planned. But the hardest part was over. The decision. The action. The point of no return. I'd crossed it. There was no going back. The morning stretched ahead. Empty. Quiet. Mine. I finished my coffee. Washed the cup. Put it away. Then I called Ari. Told him I was ready for whatever came next. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 days after the arrest, Ari called with a meeting time. Thursday, 2 o'clock. His conference room. Mark's attorney had requested a discussion. Family resolution, they called it. Before the plea formalized, the words sounded soft. Reasonable. They weren't. Ari asked if I wanted him to decline. I said no. Let them come. Some conversations need to happen. Even the ugly ones. Thursday arrived cold and bright. The kind of winter day that hurts to look at. I dressed carefully. Navy suit. White blouse. The pearl brooch my mother left me. Armor disguised as elegance. The drive downtown felt longer than usual. Every light turned red. Every block stretched. Ari's building appeared through bare trees. Brick and glass. Solid. Permanent. Inside, the elevator climbed. My reflection stared back from polished steel. Calm face. Steady eyes. The surface holding. 3rd floor. The doors opened. Ari's secretary nodded. They're already here, she said. The conference room door was closed. I could hear voices. Muffled. Tense. Ari met me in the hallway. Asked if I was ready. I told him I'd been ready since Christmas. He opened the door. The voices stopped. Mark sat at the far end. His suit was expensive. Wrinkled. His face looked thinner. Older. Aaron sat beside him. Red eyes. No makeup. Hands twisted in her lap. Their attorney sat between them and us. Mid-50s. Silver hair. Tailored suit. The kind of lawyer money buys when money's already gone. His name was Robert Chandler. He stood when I entered. Offered his hand. I didn't take it. Just sat down. Across the table. Far enough away. Ari sat beside me. Placed a thick blue folder on the polished wood. Said nothing. The silence stretched. Robert cleared his throat. He began with platitudes. Family tragedy. Misunderstandings. The stress of financial hardship. His voice was smooth. Practiced. Designed to soothe. I let him talk. Let the words fill the space. Empty calories. No nutrition. He said Mark wanted to apologize. To explain. To make amends. Ari interrupted. Your client attempted to murder Mrs. Alvarez. For insurance money. There's nothing to explain. Robert's smile tightened. He said things were more complicated. Nuanced. Desperation made people act out of character. Out of character, I repeated. Is that what we're calling attempted murder now? Mark flinched. First real reaction I'd seen. Robert pivoted, said they understood the plea agreement. 8 years. Confession. Forfeiture of inheritance rights. He paused, looked at me directly, but he wanted to discuss the trust. The 7.6 million. Surely there was room for compassion. For understanding. The word compassion landed wrong. Like a coin dropped on concrete. I looked at Mark. Really looked. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. Aaron spoke then, voice shaking, said they were sorry. So sorry. They'd made mistakes. But losing everything seemed excessive. Her voice broke on the last word. Tears followed. Real ones, probably. Ari reached for the blue folder. Opened it slowly. The sound loud in the quiet room. Inside were documents. He slid them forward, across the polished surface, into the space between us. Robert leaned forward, started reading. His expression shifted. Confusion. Then understanding. Then something harder to name. What is this? He asked. Ari explained. 6 months ago, Mrs. Alvarez restructured her estate, created the Helena Alvarez Heritage Trust. Irrevocable. 7.6 million in assets. He paused. Let that settle. Mark was named sole beneficiary, Ari continued. But with conditions. His finger tapped a clause. Highlighted in yellow. Any felony conviction, he read, results in immediate dissolution. The beneficiary is disinherited. All assets transfer to the Alliance for Survivors of Financial Abuse. Robert's face went pale. Ari tapped another clause. Lower on the page. If the insured's death is deemed non-natural, he read, and linked to the beneficiary's actions, the same result occurs. Immediate disinheritance. Full liquidation. Complete transfer. The words hung in the air. Cold. Legal. Final. Mark's attorney looked up. When was this created? Ari told him the date. 6 months ago. After the $40,000 loan. After the pattern became clear. Robert turned to Mark. Did you know about this? Mark's head shook. Slowly. Like a man in a dream. Ari continued. We have video of the signing. Physician attestation of mental capacity. 3 witnesses. All documented. All legal. He closed the folder. The sound definitive. So you see, he said, there's nothing to discuss. The moment Mark is convicted, the trust dissolves. Whether he serves 8 years or 20. Whether you ask for compassion or not. The inheritance he tried to kill for disappears. Goes to survivors of exactly the crime he committed. Erin made a sound. Small. Broken. Her hands covered her face. Mark finally looked at me. Really looked. His eyes held disbelief. Betrayal. Anger looking for somewhere to land. You planned this, he said. His voice hollow. 6 months ago. You knew. I met his gaze. Steady. Unflinching. I suspected, I said. I hoped I was wrong. But I planned anyway. Because that's what you do when the numbers don't add up. You raised me, Mark said. And you set a trap. I protected myself, I told him. There's a difference. Robert tried to recover. Asked about negotiating the trust terms. Modifying the clauses. Ari cut him off. The trust is irrevocable. The language is clear. There's nothing to negotiate. Robert looked at his clients. Then at me. The calculation in his eyes was visible. There was no play here. No angle. No way forward. He stood. Said they needed to confer. Discuss their options. Ari said there were no options. The plea was on the table until Friday. After that, full trial. 20 years minimum. Robert gathered his papers. Mark and Erin stood. They looked smaller somehow. diminished. At the door, Mark turned back. Looked at me one last time. I thought you loved me, he said. I did, I told him. I do. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy me. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled. Ari leaned back. His chair creaked. That went as expected, he said. I asked what happened now. He said they'd take the plea. No choice left. Friday morning. Mark would stand before a judge. Admit attempted murder. Sign away all inheritance claims. Then 8 years. Federal minimum security. If he was lucky. And the trust, I asked. Dissolves upon conviction, Ari said. Automatic. The charity receives everything within 30 days. Your name on the donation. Your choice made permanent. I sat quietly. The afternoon light shifted. Dust motes danced in the beam. 30 years of balancing books taught me one thing. Every column needs to total. Credits and debits. Assets and losses. The page has to close clean. This was my final reconciliation. The last entry. The sum that made everything balance. Ari asked if I was okay. Really okay. I told him I was empty. But not hollow. There was a difference. The drive home was quiet. The radio off. The world outside moving at normal speed. At home, I made tea. Sat in the kitchen. The same chair. The same table. The same walls that held 30 years. But something had shifted. The weight I'd carried since Christmas had lifted. Not gone. Just lighter. My phone rang. Detective Ruiz. She'd heard about the meeting. Asked how it went. I told her they understood now. About the trust. About the trap that had been waiting all along. She was quiet for a moment. Then said I'd done something rare. Turned pain into structure. Grief into consequence. Not many people could do that, she said. I told her I'd had good teachers. 30 years of them. Every ledger that needed closing. Every account that had to balance. She said she'd see me Friday. At the plea hearing. If I wanted to be there. I said I'd think about it. After we hung up, the house settled around me. Familiar sounds. Creaking floors. Ticking clock. The furnace cycling on. This was my space now. Really mine. No longer infiltrated by plans and poison. The evening darkened. I turned on lamps. Made dinner. Soup and bread. Simple. Sufficient. Later, I sat by the window. Watched the street. Cars passing. Lives moving. The ordinary machinery of existence. Friday would come. Mark would stand before a judge. Say words he couldn't take back. And I would be there. Not for revenge. Not for closure. But as witness. To the end I'd written 6 months ago. When the numbers stopped adding up. When love stopped being enough. The clock struck 8. The house held me. The night stretched ahead. I was ready. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Friday morning came quiet and gray. I woke before dawn. Made coffee in the dark. The kitchen filled with familiar sounds. Water heating. Beans grinding. The ritual of ordinary things. Outside, frost covered everything. Trees. Grass. Car windows. The world locked in ice. The courthouse was downtown. 20 minutes in traffic. I'd been there before. Jury duty. Estate paperwork after my husband died. Buildings remember nothing. People do. I dressed in gray. Charcoal wool. Simple lines. The kind of outfit that disappears in a crowd. The drive was mechanical. Left at the light. Right at the corner. Park in the structure. Level 3. Space near the elevator. Inside the courthouse, security waited. Metal detectors. X-ray machines. Guards with bored faces. I emptied my pockets. Keys, phone, reading glasses. Walked through the arch. Nothing beeped. The hallway stretched long. Marble floors. High ceilings. The smell of floor polish and old paper. Courtroom 4B. Second floor. The directory pointed left. People filled the hallway. Attorneys in suits. Families in clusters. Everyone waiting for justice. Or something like it. Detective Ruiz stood near the courtroom door. She saw me, nodded, walked over. She asked how I was holding up. I said I was fine. She said the plea would be quick. Standard language. Mark would allocute. That meant confess. Admit each element of the crime. Then sentencing guidelines. 8 years federal. Minimum security if he qualified. Restitution if any was owed. The judge would ask if I wanted to speak. I could. Or not. I asked what most people did. She said some stayed silent. Some needed words. Whatever felt right. I told her I'd decide when the moment came. The courtroom doors opened. People filed in. I followed. The room was smaller than expected. Wood paneling. Rows of benches. A raised platform for the judge. Flags in the corner. I sat in the back. Third row. Aisle seat. Easy exit if needed. Detective Ruiz sat beside me. Ari appeared from somewhere. Sat on my other side. More people entered. Mark's attorney. The prosecutor. Court staff with files and folders. Then Mark. Escorted by 2 marshals. Hands cuffed in front. Orange jumpsuit. No tie. No expensive suit. He looked smaller in orange. Younger. More like the boy I raised. Erin sat in the front row. Alone. Her shoulders shook but no sound came. The bailiff called for all to rise. The judge entered. Black robes. Gray hair. Tired eyes that had seen this before. Everyone sat. The room settled. The air felt heavy. The clerk read the case number. The charges. Conspiracy to commit murder. Insurance fraud. Attempted homicide. The words sounded worse spoken aloud. Formal. Clinical. True. The judge asked Mark how he pleaded. His attorney stood. Said his client wished to enter a guilty plea. The judge asked Mark directly. Asked if he understood the charges. If he'd discussed this with counsel. If anyone had threatened or coerced him. Mark's voice came out thin. Yes. Yes. No. The judge asked if he was pleading guilty because he was guilty. Because he'd committed these acts. A pause. Long enough to hear someone cough in the back row. Yes, Mark said. Yes, Your Honor. The judge began the allocution. Walked through each charge, each element. Asked Mark to confirm. Did you conspire to cause the death of Helena Alvarez? Your mother. I did. Did you purchase substances intended to induce cardiac arrest? I did. Did you administer those substances with intent to kill? I did. Did you file a fraudulent life insurance policy in your mother's name? I did. Each admission landed like a stone. Small, heavy, permanent. The courtroom was silent. Even the air seemed to hold still. The judge accepted the plea. Said it was knowing, voluntary, supported by facts. Then came sentencing. The prosecutor outlined the guidelines. 8 years federal custody. 3 years supervised release. Restitution for investigation costs. Forfeiture of all inheritance claims. The judge asked if the victim wished to make a statement. The room turned. Eyes found me. Waited. I stood. Slowly. My legs felt steady. My voice would be too. The judge asked my name. I gave it. Asked me to approach. I walked forward. The microphone sat on a podium. I stood behind it. Mark was 10 feet away. close enough to see his face. "Your Honor," I began. My voice clear, calm. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here as witness. To what happened. To what my son chose." I paused. The silence held. "He didn't kill me," I continued. "But not because he couldn't. Because the drug didn't work fast enough. Because I found the evidence." Mark's head dropped. His shoulders curved inward. "I spent 30 years balancing accounts," I said. "Making numbers add up. When they didn't, I investigated. I documented. I prepared. 6 months ago, I saw the pattern. The debts. The requests. The desperation. So I restructured my estate. Protected my assets. Built a consequence into the system." The judge listened. Expressionless. Professional. "My son will serve 8 years," I said. "When he's released, he'll be 52. Still young enough to rebuild. To choose differently. But he'll inherit nothing from me." That was the consequence I built. The clause that triggered when he made his choice. I looked at Mark then. Really looked. "I loved you," I said. "I still do. But love isn't permission. It's not protection from consequences. You tried to kill me for money. The money is gone. That's the equation." My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. 30 years of bank work gave me that. The ability to deliver bad news calmly. I stepped back, returned to my seat. The room stayed quiet. The judge addressed Mark. Said he'd seen many crimes. Many motives. But harming one's own mother for financial gain was among the worst. 8 years was lenient, the judge said. But it was the agreement. The court would honor it. Sentencing would be immediate. Credit for time served. Report date to federal facility in 30 days. The gavel came down. One sharp crack. The sound of finality. Marshals approached Mark. Led him toward a side door. He looked back once. At Aaron. At me. At the room that held his confession. Then he was gone. The door closed. The trial that never was ended anyway. People stood. Gathered belongings. Filed out. Life resuming. Detective Ruiz touched my shoulder. Said I did well. Said it was over now. Ari said the trust dissolution would process automatically. 30 days. Then the charity would receive everything. My name on the donation. My choice made permanent. I thanked them both. Walked toward the exit. The hallway was bright after the courtroom's dim. Outside, the sun had broken through clouds. Cold light on frost. The day continuing. I drove home. Same route. Same turns. Same parking space in my driveway. Inside, the house felt different. Lighter. Like pressure released. Like a long-held breath finally let go. I made tea. Sat at the kitchen table. The window showed my yard. My trees. My life. The phone stayed silent. No calls from Mark. No calls from Aaron. That chapter was closed. The page turned. I thought about the trust. $7.6 million. It would help people who'd been manipulated. Stolen from. Used by family members who saw them as assets. People like me. But people who didn't have 30 years of banking experience. Who didn't know how to build a consequence into the structure. The money would do what I couldn't. Protect the vulnerable. Teach the pattern. Show that financial abuse has a cost. That felt right. Balanced. Complete. Evening came slowly. I made dinner. Ate at the table. Washed the dishes. Normal tasks. Normal rhythms. Later, I pulled out old photo albums. Found pictures of Mark at different ages. Before debt. Before desperation. Before he chose money over everything else. The pictures showed a boy I'd loved. A man I'd hoped he'd become. Neither existed now. Just the person in orange who'd said yes when asked if he tried to kill me. I closed the album. Put it away. Not destroyed. Just stored. History acknowledged but not dwelled in. The house settled around me. Walls I'd painted. Floors I'd walked for 30 years. Mine. Still mine. Mine again. I went to bed early. Sleep came easier than expected. No dreams. No disturbances. Just rest. Tomorrow would be Saturday. The first day of whatever came next. A life rebuilt. A ledger closed. A mother who chose survival over sentiment. The numbers finally added up. The books finally balanced. And I could finally rest. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Winter released its grip slowly that year. February came. Then March. The days stretched longer. Light returned in increments. Mark was transferred to a federal facility in Pennsylvania. Minimum security. The kind with dormitories instead of cells. He'd serve 6 years with good behavior. Maybe less. Ari sent updates when they arrived. I read them once. Filed them away. The trust dissolution processed exactly as written. 30 days after the conviction. $7.6 million transferred to the Alliance for Survivors of Financial Abuse. They sent a letter. Thanked me. Said the donation was transformative. Said my name would be on their education center. A building dedicated to teaching people how to recognize financial manipulation. I told them to leave my name off. Use the money. Teach the patterns. That was enough. But they insisted. The Helena Alvarez Resource Center. A place where people learned to read the warning signs. To build their own protections. To balance their own books before someone else did it for them. The dedication ceremony was in April. Spring finally breaking through. I wore navy. Simple. Appropriate. The center was modern. Glass and light. Tables where counselors met with victims. Computers for research. A library of legal templates and financial guides. The director gave a speech. Said most financial abuse came from family. Children. Spouses. People trusted most. People who knew which buttons to push. She said the center would change that. Teach boundaries. Teach documentation. Teach that love without limits was just another word for vulnerability. I sat in the front row. Listened. Didn't speak. Afterwards, people approached. Shook my hand. Told me their stories. A daughter who emptied accounts. A son who forged signatures. A spouse who drained retirement funds. Each story was familiar. Different details. Same structure. Same betrayal. I listened to each one. Offered no advice. Just presence. Just witness. One woman asked how I stayed so calm. How I managed the pain. I told her I'd had practice. 30 years of balancing accounts. Every error had to be found. Every discrepancy resolved. Emotion didn't help. Process did. She nodded. Said she was learning that now. The hard way. I told her the hard way was the only way. But she'd survive it. The center would help. The afternoon wore on. I left before dinner. Drove home through neighborhoods turning green. My house looked the same. But it felt different. Settled. Mine in a way it hadn't been since Christmas. I'd made changes. Small ones. Repainted the guest room. Mark's old bedroom. A soft gray instead of blue. Neutral. Open to whatever came next. I'd donated his childhood things. The model bridges. The school trophies. The baseball glove he'd stopped using at 12. Someone else could use them. I didn't need the reminders. What I kept were the documents. The evidence. The trail that showed what happened. stored in a fireproof box in the basement. Not for sentiment. For record. Life found new rhythms. Library on Tuesdays. Grocery on Thursdays. Coffee with old colleagues on Saturday mornings. One of them asked about Mark. The question inevitable. Casual. I said he was away. Didn't elaborate. She didn't push. People knew something had happened. Small town networks. Courthouse records. But I didn't feed the story. Didn't add details. The facts existed. That was enough. Summer arrived warm and bright. I planted tomatoes. Tended the garden my husband had started years ago. The routine was meditative. Hands in soil. Sun on shoulders. Growth measured in inches. Detective Ruiz called in June. Said she was following up. Making sure I was okay. I told her I was fine. Really fine. She said most victims struggled. With guilt. With grief. With wondering if they'd done the right thing. I told her I balanced books for 30 years. When the numbers don't add up, you find the error. You correct it. You move forward. She laughed. Said I was one of the few who actually did that. Most people couldn't separate love from consequences. Couldn't hold both truths at once. I asked what truths she meant. She said the truth that you love someone. And the truth that they tried to destroy you. Most people chose one or the other. Denial or hatred. I told her I chose both. I loved the boy Mark was. Or the boy I thought he was. And I chose survival over that love. The truths could coexist. They just couldn't both win. She said that was healthy. Rare. But healthy. We hung up. The afternoon was quiet. Birds in the trees. Neighbors mowing lawns. The ordinary machinery of life. In July, a letter arrived. Federal facility. Pennsylvania. Mark's handwriting on the envelope. I held it for a long time. Felt the weight of it. The thickness suggesting multiple pages. Then I put it in a drawer. Unopened. I wasn't ready. Might never be. The letter sat there. A possibility. An option. Not a requirement. August brought heat. The kind that makes air shimmer. I stayed inside during the worst hours. Read books. Watched old movies. Let time pass. One evening, my neighbor knocked. Mrs. Chen, 83, widowed, living alone. She asked if I could look at some papers. Her grandson wanted to borrow money. For a business. The numbers seemed wrong to her. But she didn't trust her own judgment anymore. I invited her in. Made tea. Spread the papers on the kitchen table. The business plan was thin. Expenses inflated. Revenue projections absurd. The loan terms were predatory. 20% interest. Balloon payment in 6 months. I showed her the problems. Line by line. Where the numbers didn't work. Where the assumptions failed. She listened. Asked questions. Then said she'd been afraid of this. He's family, she said. Her voice small. I should trust him. I told her family was complicated. Trust had to be earned. Not assumed. She asked what I'd do in her position. I said I'd say no. I'd offer to pay for a real business plan. A consultant. Help him learn to do it right. But I wouldn't hand over money for a fantasy. She thanked me. Said she'd think about it. But I could see the decision in her eyes. She'd say no. She'd survive the disappointment. The guilt. The anger. After she left, I sat in the quiet kitchen. The same table where I'd spread my own evidence. The same space where I'd made my own calculations. This was what the resource center did. What the money taught. Pattern recognition. Boundary setting. The courage to say no when love demanded yes. The lesson I'd learned at Christmas. The knowledge bought with betrayal. September arrived cool and clear. School buses returned. Leaves started turning. The year cycling toward its end. I thought about Mark sometimes. In a room with other men. Learning new patterns. Or not. I thought about the trust. How it taught the lesson I couldn't. That consequences were real. That actions had costs. That $7.6 million could disappear if you tried to kill for it. The house held me gently. Walls I'd known for 30 years. Floors that remembered every version of me. The woman who'd arrived as a young bride. The mother who'd raised a son. The widow who'd endured. The survivor who'd balanced the books. I was all of them. And none of them. Just a woman in a house. Living a life. Measuring time in quiet days. October came. A year since Christmas dinner. A year since the key fob and the too tall centerpiece. A year since I found the vial and the policy. I didn't mark the anniversary. Didn't need to. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. But I noticed the date. Acknowledged it. Let it pass. That evening, I pulled out the letter. Mark's letter. Still sealed. I held it to the light. Couldn't see through the envelope. Didn't try harder. Then I put it back in the drawer. Still unopened. Maybe someday. Maybe never. The choice was mine. That mattered more than the answer. Outside, leaves fell. The season turning. The world continuing its rotations. Inside, I made dinner. Washed dishes. Turned on lamps against the early dark. The house was quiet. Peaceful. Mine. I'd survived what was meant to kill me. Built something from the wreckage. Taught a lesson to people I'd never meet. The books were balanced. The accounts closed. The final entry written. Some stories end with reconciliation. With forgiveness. With families reunited. This one ended with clarity. With boundaries. With a woman who chose herself when the equation demanded it. That was enough. More than enough. Everything.